The Champions League is back for yet another week. This time we'll be covering the Matchday 4 games. We have some very good matches like Liverpool versus Real Madrid and PSG versus Bayern. That's going to be crazy. They're going to be super good. So hopefully you do enjoy the video. Drop a like if you do. And let's get straight into it. Now Napoli versus Eintracht Frankfurt. This game I have a feeling is going to be quite tight. So let's get started with Napoli first off. They have not been too good so far in the Champions League, only winning one match so far, and that was the 2-1 win against Sporting, which is quite solid, I would say, but then losing 2-0 to Man City and 6-2 to PSV. That's actually quite crazy. I thought this Napoli side were quite solid defensively, but does not really look like it. But I believe that result versus PSV is a little bit embarrassing, especially with the quality Napoli have in that game. McTominay was actually the player to get both goals. It wasn't enough, unfortunately, but in this match, Conte needs to change something up. Now on to Eintracht Frankfurt. They have been not the best in this competition. Started off pretty well with a 5-1 win against Galatasaray, but then losing to Atletico Madrid by the same score, 5-1, and to Liverpool, 5-1. Very rough to concede like 5 goals back to back in the Champions League matches. Offensively, I would say they were quite horrible. Honestly, only getting one shot on target against Liverpool, but losing Ekitike is obviously a massive loss from them as well. Things have got to change from the manager, honestly, coming into this game against Napoli. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Napoli. Moving on to Slavia Praha versus Arsenal. This game is easily a one-sided match, so let's get started with Slavia Praha. They seem to be struggling a little bit in the Champions League, not having any wins so far, but 2 draws and a loss. Now last game they played Atalanta and they drew 0-0. I would say that is a decent result, but Atalanta are off form. They could be a underrated team, you could say, but once they face Arsenal in this match, I think it's going to be their probably toughest opposition yet. Now on to Arsenal. They have been doing very well in this competition, amongst the top sides in the Champions League. I would say honestly Arsenal are one of the favorites to win the competition at this current moment. Their defensive record has been perfect. They have conceded 0 goals in all matches. Last game though was a very surprising win, 4-0 win against Atletico Madrid for Arsenal. I did not expect that kind of result to come through, but we dominated that game very well. Probably 2 goals coming from set pieces. That's just what we do. We score set pieces. We're really good at it. Gyökeres also got a brace in that match as well, which is a huge W. Now my prediction for this game is going to be a 3-0 win for Arsenal. Moving on to Atletico Madrid versus Union St. Gilloise. Now this game could be quite the decent match. So let's get started with Atletico Madrid. They have been doing okay in the Champions League despite them having 1 win and 2 losses. They lost very late against Liverpool, which is very rough. I would say arguably they deserved to win that match, but Liverpool just nicked it late on. Now Arsenal did dominate them. Alvarez was the only one trying to do something in the attack, so honestly they have some solid players in that team and they could do well in this match. I honestly expect them to win this match. On to Union St. Gilloise. They seem to be not doing the best so far, only winning 1 game in the Champions League campaign so far. That win being a 3-1 win against PSV, which is solid. Last game they played Inter and they lost by a 4-0 scoreline. Inter were the more dominant side and also more clinical at the end of the day. Now I don't know why, but I have a feeling Union St. Gilloise can be underrated in the Champions League, but we have seen it in the Europa League last season, but Champions League is another level. Now my prediction is going to be a 3-2 win for Atletico Madrid. Moving on to probably one of the biggest matches we have this week, Liverpool versus Real Madrid. This is going to be such a banger, so let's get started with Liverpool. It has been quite a rough season for them overall. The Champions League, they have 2 wins and a loss, One of the wins coming very late against Atletico Madrid, as I mentioned before. And last game they played Eintracht Frankfurt and they won that game 5-1. Now Slot decided to actually drop Salah in this match, and it honestly seemed to work. They scored 5 goals, which is probably the highest goal amount they have scored in a single game this whole season. Now both Van Dijk and Kairat got goals in this match as well. So Liverpool really need to turn up here against Real Madrid. Onto Real Madrid, they are looking very good so far this season, winning all of their matches in the Champions League. Honestly, they've been playing a lot better football under Xabi Alonso. Last game they played Juventus, managed to get a 1-0 win, and the goal coming from Jude Bellingham was back from injury. Now he has started off very well, contributing very well 2 goals in their recent matches, and Mbappe, we all know what he's doing right now. He's just scoring for fun. He is the absolute joke at the moment. Now my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Real Madrid. Moving on to Tottenham versus Copenhagen. This is actually going to be a very interesting game. So let's get started with Tottenham. They have been okay, you could say, in the Champions League, actually undefeated with 1 win and 2 draws, which isn't too bad. But a lot of Tottenham fans, they're kind of complaining about their play style, like how they're playing and stuff, but still, you have not gotten a loss, which is a positive. And last game they played Monaco and they drew 0-0. And in that game, I won't even lie, Vicario was on absolute smoke in that match. Monaco were very dominant in that game, but Vicario just kept on saving shots. I think he had around 5 or 6 saves. It's unreal. But Tottenham did not have many clear-cut chances. Offensively, I think this team has got to do better in this match. Onto Copenhagen, they have been struggling quite a bit this season. They have not won a single game in the Champions League just yet. Now last game they faced off against Dortmund, who are very good. They ended up losing that match 4-2, which is very unfortunate. It was a fairly even game stats wise, but Dortmund were just more clinical at the end of the day. And even before this match, they lost 2-0 to Qarabag, which is quite crazy. Qarabag is honestly doing pretty decent in this competition. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Tottenham. Moving on to Olympiacos versus PSV. This could end up being a very underrated matchup. So let's get started with Olympiacos. It has not been a good campaign for them so far, not winning any matches just yet. But last game, their biggest loss came against Barcelona, losing 6-1. Barcelona absolutely slapped them up in that match. Santiago Hezi got a red card as well, so he'll be out for this match against PSV. Now onto PSV, they have been doing quite alright. They got 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss, so pretty even record over there. Now last game they did turn it around and they played very well. They played against Napoli and they won that game 6-2, which was a huge surprise to me. Most of the attack bagged the goals as well. Dennis Van with a absolute banger. What a goal from him. Attacking wise, this team is very dangerous once they get going, honestly. But my prediction is going to be a 4-1 win for PSV. Moving on to Juventus versus Sporting. This game is going to be a very solid one. So let's get started with Juventus. They're not doing too well in the Champions League. They actually started off the Champions League campaign with a 4-4 draw. That was an insane game versus Dortmund. Then they drew to Villarreal 1-1, which isn't really ideal. But last game they played Real Madrid and they lost 1-0. So they are still yet to get a win in this competition. And they have sacked their manager Igor Tudor due to the lack of results. He has not gotten any wins for them in this competition, even in the league as well. And it fully makes sense because with the quality they have, they should be doing a lot better. Now Juventus, could they turn it around here? Let's figure it out. Now onto Sporting. They're doing pretty decent in this competition, winning 2 matches and losing 1, which is, I would say, a pretty solid record so far. But last game they played against Marseille, who are quite a good side. I would say Sporting actually managed to beat them 2-1, which was a huge win for them. Alison Santos got the winner for them, and in my opinion, they should be able to beat Juventus, especially with their recent form. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Sporting. Moving on to PSG versus Bayern. This has to be the biggest game all week right here. Apart from Liverpool and Real Madrid, this game right here is probably two very attacking sides going at it. So let's get started with PSG. They are the reigning champions in this competition. They have started off the season just like they ended it, very strong. They have won all of their matches, which is great for them. But last game, they put on a absolute show. They beat Leverkusen 7-2, which is actually insane, with it being a 10v10, as Andrich and Zabarny both got red cards like around the 30th minute or so. But at the moment, PSG are sitting at the top of the league phase table. Now Bayern are also looking very good this season. They have won all of their matches in the Champions League so far. They had a first game against Chelsea, which they did very well. They won that game 3-1. I was thinking it was going to be a lot tighter, but Bayern absolutely dominated that match and they deserved the win as well. Now last game, Bayern played against Club Brugge and they won 4-0. I gotta say as well, Harry Kane is on some unreal goal scoring form. If he keeps this up and they win potentially the Champions League and the Bundesliga, he could be a top runner for the Ballon d'Or, especially with the numbers he's getting at the moment. For me, I think Bayern are one of the strongest attacking teams in the Champions League, and potentially they could win this competition as well. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-2 draw between the two. I think it's going to be fairly even. Moving on to Bodø Glimt versus Monaco. This could be a very underrated match, so let's get started with Bodø Glimt. They seem to be doing quite alright so far, even though at the moment they have 2 draws and a loss. I still consider them quite underrated because of their run last year in the Europa League. Now actually in their last game they played Galatasaray and they lost 3-1. Now this is a match that was being played at home, so we all know how well Bodø Glimt play at home. They're very strong when playing in their stadium. So in their last game, Osimhen did cause them problems and Galatasaray absolutely dominated in that match. Now Osimhen got a brace against them, so Bodø Glimt, I think they could do a lot better in this Monaco game. On to Monaco, I consider them to be quite a underrated team. They have been alright in this campaign so far. Last season they were actually doing quite well, but last game they played Tottenham and they drew 0-0, but they fully dominated the game. Just Vicario somehow turned into prime Neuer. But this is a team who has a lot of talent, I think, all over the pitch. With Balogun up top, he could have had a hat-trick last game. Honestly, he missed some key chances. Then you have Ansu Fati in there, Pogba, who honestly we haven't seen him play yet for Monaco, but very good solid footballing side, and I'm just a fan of how they played their football. It's very clean and just offensive, I would say. Now my prediction is going to be a 1-1 draw between the two. Moving on to Pafos versus Villarreal. This game should be, I would say, a alright one, so let's get started with Pafos. It is actually their first time in this competition, I believe. It has gone not too bad so far, but they have drawn 2 matches and lost 1, so the loss was a huge 5-1 loss to Bayern. Bayern have been quality, so it makes sense. But last game, Pafos did play Kairat and they drew 0-0. They had so many chances in this match. Dragomir let one rip from, I don't even know, outside the box. It was going top right. It literally hit the corner where the goalpost and the crossbar meet, hit off the keeper, but it was ruled offside. Unfortunately, that would have been an absolute banger, potentially goal of the Champions League so far. On to Villarreal. They have not been the best in this competition. They have actually lost 3 games in 3 matches so far in the Champions League. Not ideal at all. Now, to be fair, they have had some quite rough games. They have played Man City, which they ended up losing 2-0 in their last game. Then they got fully dominated in that match, if I'm being honest. But we do have to keep an eye on Nicolas Pepe. He has been in some decent form. He won Player of the Month in August, so he started off the season very well, but that was like 2 months ago. So let's see how he does in this match, but this team has quality all around though, so I think they should be doing a lot better than how they are right now. Now my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Villarreal. Moving on to Qarabag versus Chelsea. Now this one is going to be super interesting, so let's get started with Qarabag. They have been doing alright in this competition so far. Surprisingly, they have 2 wins and a draw so far, so you could say they are in pretty good form so far. The last game they did play Atletico and they lost 3-1. They got dominated like crazy. Even though they scored in the first minute, they only managed to get one more shot after that first minute goal, which is crazy. They did not go for more. They maybe just kind of sat back a little bit more. But it's going to be very interesting to see how they deal with this Chelsea team. Onto Chelsea, they're doing quite alright in the Champions League, winning 2 games so far and losing 1 in the first 3 matches. Now their only loss was a 3-1 loss to Bayern, who, as I mentioned almost every single time, they are going crazy this season. Last game it was a massive improvement in terms of form. They managed to win 5-1 against Ajax, which is a very solid score. Caicedo, Enzo, Estavio, Guihi, I think is how you pronounce it, all of them scored yet again, which is crazy. We saw Caicedo playing right back. I mean, we've seen it a few times for Chelsea. Probably rested Reece James, but the win was a huge win for their confidence, especially. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Chelsea. Moving on to Man City versus Dortmund. This one I feel like it's going to be a super entertaining match. So let's get started with Man City. They have been doing well in the Champions League so far. They have not lost a match, which is a good sign. They won 2 games so far and they drew 1. So last game they played Villarreal, and as I mentioned before, they won that game 2-0. They dominated that game, I mean, fairly well, getting a clean sheet and getting 2 goals. Haaland, as per usual, he scored in that match. He's just scoring at an unreal rate. I think the most important signing this summer, not most important, but most impactful so far, has been Donnarumma coming in that keeper position. He's providing that safety in that position. Now on to Dortmund. They have been doing quite well in the Champions League, undefeated so far with 2 wins and a draw, and every year I feel like they're a very strong team. They have an incredible amount of quality in that team. They have Gilloise, a striker who was up there in the Champions League with the top scorers last season, a very talented Joe Bellingham in the middle with Nemetra beside him. Honestly, this has been a very underrated team the past few seasons in the Champions League. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-2 draw between the two. Moving on to Newcastle versus Atletico. This game, I think it should be quite tight. So let's get started with Newcastle. They've been doing quite decent in this competition so far, despite them taking a early 2-1 loss to Barcelona in the first game, which they played at St. James's Park. But their form turned straight around after that match. Like last game they played Benfica and they won 3-0. Harvey Barnes bagging a brace in that match and Gordon getting a goal as well. They fully dominated that match and limited Benfica to limiting shots. I swear Benfica had like 2 shots on target. Newcastle are a very solid team defensively and great in transition, especially with the pace they have up front. Now onto Atletico. They have been doing not the best so far, but the form has turned around in their most recent match. Like last game they played Qarabag and they won 3-1, which is huge, dominating that game in every single aspect: shots on target, possession, you name it. But Nico Williams was back and he was playing in that match, which probably played an impact, but I'm not really sure what to think about this team because I do think they will struggle against Newcastle, and my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Newcastle. Moving on to Ajax versus Galatasaray. This match could honestly go either way, so let's get started with Ajax. They have been quite horrible this campaign, if I'm being honest, possibly the worst I've seen Ajax in European football in recent years. They have only scored a single goal in 3 matches which is crazy. Ajax were once known for being a very offensive team, scoring goals, playing amazing football, and now they have scored only 1 goal in the past 3 matches. Now last game they played Chelsea and they got smoked 5-1. Things really do need to change if they want to get like a bit higher in the league phase table. Now onto Galatasaray, they have been doing fairly decent in this competition, although they did start off with a bad 5-1 loss to Frankfurt. But after that, they managed to turn it around against Liverpool. They got a huge 1-0 win against Liverpool, and they took advantage of Liverpool's form as well. Then last game they played Bodø Glimt, and they won that game 3-1. Dominated that game as well like crazy. Germain bagging a brace in that match. This team could honestly be one team that we could see going under the radar and doing something special potentially. Now my prediction is going to be a 3-0 win for Galatasaray. Moving on to Club Brugge versus Barcelona. This game can be quite the solid one. So let's start off with Club Brugge. They have not been the best so far in this competition, winning their first match but then losing the next 2. Now last game they played Bayern and they lost 4-0, which is tough. We all know how well Bayern is doing this season. Club Brugge though, they got dominated in that match. They only managed 2 shots on target, and facing off against Barca in this match is going to be a very rough matchup as well. But they could probably exploit Barcelona's defense, I would say, because their defense is not the best. But on to Barcelona, they've been doing pretty decent this season. Their performances have been pretty decent. Now last game they played Olympiacos and they smoked them 6-1. Fermin Lopez balled out, getting a hat-trick. What an unreal player. He had a goal with his head, goal with his right foot, left foot. Then Rashford in top form as well. He bagged the brace to help Barcelona win. So we all consider Barcelona one of the best teams in the world. But a problem is they have quite a few players injured. They have Rafinha out, Pedri is out as well, and I believe Lewandowski is out for a bit of time as well. But also they just came off a 2-1 win in the El Clasico against Real Madrid. So could that carry into this match? We will find out. Now my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Barcelona. Moving on to Benfica versus Leverkusen. This game could honestly go either way. So let's get started with Benfica. They have been struggling a lot so far. In their first 3 matches, they've gotten 3 losses. Now their most recent loss was a 3-0 loss to Newcastle. By the looks of it, they are struggling to get goals. They have only scored 2 goals in their first match that they played. So Jose Mourinho has not started well at Benfica, so he needs to switch something up in this match. Onto Leverkusen, they have not been doing too well in the Champions League. They have not won a single match in the competition as well. They have only 2 draws and a loss so far. But last game, my oh my, they got smoked 7-2 by PSG. Absolutely smoked. Both teams got a red card, so it was like a 10v10 situation, which is kind of funny. It's crazy because I do not see one player apart from Grimaldo who was in the undefeated Bundesliga season. All the other players just left. They sold all the players and they have not invested it into new talent too well, I would say. But hopefully things do turn around for them, and I do see them winning this match. So I say Leverkusen winning it 2-1. Moving on to Inter versus Kairat. This game surely goes only one way, so let's get started with Inter. As per usual, they have been a very strong team in the Champions League. They have always been a pretty solid defensive team, which is also scoring goals this season more than usual, but they have conceded not a single goal in any game so far. They are also undefeated in this competition with all wins. All 3 matches are wins. And last game they played Union St. Gilloise and they won that match 4-0. So I mean, the goals were spread throughout the whole team. Lautaro Martinez got the goal, Dumfries got a goal, Çalhanoğlu got a goal, and I do think they could go far in this competition once again, like they did like 2 years ago. We gotta keep an eye on Inter this season because they're scoring a lot more goals. Now on to Kairat. They have not been good at all in this competition, losing all 3 of their games so far, and it is gonna be tough for them in this match because Inter are a top side. And last game, Kairat, they played Pafos and they drew 0-0. But let's be honest, Pafos probably deserved the win in that game, but they drew the game. Now Kairat have struggled offensively. They have only scored 1 goal in 3 matches so far in the Champions League. Like, they had lots of shots off target, but you gotta try and get them on target to score goals. They had an advantage as well because Pafos got a red card in the 4th minute, and you still had Pafos playing a lot better than the Kairat. So this is gonna be probably their toughest match yet, and my prediction is gonna be a 3-0 win for Inter. Now moving on to Marseille versus Atalanta. So let's end off this video with a absolute banger of a game. So let's get started with Marseille. First off, they have been doing alright, you could say, despite them having 1 win and 2 losses, which isn't the best, I would say. But the 1 win coming from Ajax, which they won 4-0, and last game they faced off against Sporting, and they actually lost that game 2-1. They were going 1-0 up going into halftime, and they got a red card in the 47th minute. And yeah, that probably changed the game and allowed Sporting to win that match. Now Paxao has been scoring a lot. Every time I check the score of the game, I see this guy on the score sheet nearly in every single match. So he's firing at a very good rate, and honestly I don't see him stopping at all. Onto Atalanta, they've been doing alright as well. They have ones all across the board. They have 1 draw, 1 win, 1 loss as well. Their first match was a rough way to start the competition. They faced off against PSG and they lost that game 4-0, which was expected. You're facing off against the reigning champions of this competition. Now last game though, they faced off against Slavia Praha, and I thought they had that game in the bag, but they managed to draw 0-0 in that match, which was very surprising to me, and they were the team with the most clear-cut chances. Slavia Praha, that keeper was on some absolute smoke. That guy was saving clear-cut chances, like literally 3 or 4 yards out, he was saving it. Like, unbelievable stuff from him. He literally saved a point for his team right there. But my prediction in this match is going to be a 2-1 win for Atalanta. So yeah, quite a long video, but hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to drop a like if you haven't already, and don't forget to subscribe for future content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.